Good evening and welcome to the June 3rd meeting of the Pitt County Schools Board of Education. I'd like to welcome everyone that's here this evening. We have a rather large crowd, which is always a good thing when people get involved in our process. In terms of the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Kenny, if you would please lead us, and could you introduce to us the individual that's helping you with that this evening?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce our man, Hunter Gaskins, from the kindergarten class at Grifton School, who's agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. We'd also like to recognize his parents who are sitting right in the back here. Thank you for lending your boy to us tonight.
Outstanding.
Here you go,
If you
Hunter.
would please join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's thank Hunter, folks.
I don't know about you guys, but the pledge always sounds wonderful when we have a lot of extra little ones that are helping us say it. So that's always a good thing. If we could have roll call at this time, please. Signify with yes and confirm.
It's been a long time since we've been here now.
Ms. Council, did you confirm? Mr.
I
Moore,
did.
did you confirm? May have to hit yes again and confirm.
Did it do it that time? Okay, got it.
Very good. We have 100% tonight. Very good. Mr. Forbes, if you'd lead us please in a moment of silence.
Yes, we just want to remember all of our students and hopefully they have a safe summer and a safe end of the year. And we hope that we have good graduations this year and that they are safe. And we also still want to remember the people out in Oklahoma and what they're going through with the tornadoes. Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Forbes. At this time, under routine business, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Peden,
I'd like to move F up to, under new business, to first item of discussion, please.
first item
Second.
under new business.
Yes, sir.
So you would revert that from A to F and so on. It's been moved by Mr. Peden and it's been seconded by Mr. Forrest. Is there any further discussion on that? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same sign.
We're going to vote.
We're voting.
Oh.
I'm sorry, it used to be in the third
That's all,
floor
that's
there.
all right. We got these gadgets we need to use.
Very good. So we will make an adjustment on that item. Thank you so much. Are there any more adjustments to the agenda? If not, I believe we need to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second, Mr. Peden? Okay, let's vote.
You vote, Mildred.
Very good. Thank you so much. The agenda has been approved. And the next item on the agenda is public expression. The first individual to speak this evening is the Honorable Mayor of Bethel, Colonel Mike Whitehurst.
I'd rather hear the kids sing, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
I'm here tonight on behalf of the residents of the town of Bethel, some of the residents of Belvoir. Over the past many years, several of the parents of Belvoir have chosen to enroll their students in the Bethel school. Recently, 2 parents were notified that the county would no longer allow them to enroll their students in the Bethel school. They were advised that there is a Pitt County policy which prevents a parent of a child who attends an open enrollment school from enrolling that student in another open enrollment school. Both the Bethel and Belvoir schools, of course, are open enrollment schools. Our understanding is that this policy has been in place for several years, however, has not been enforced. On behalf of Bethel, our concern is that if enforced, the Bethel school, my school, will lose somewhere between 40 to 60 students per academic year. We believe that if that happens within the next 2 years, we'll be standing in front of this board once again defending the very existence of our school simply because we lack the student population to justify its existence. We find no merit to the policy from a fiscal, social, or academic standpoint. Had the policy had merit, it would have been enforced a long time before, and we would have embraced that policy. Our children are allowed to enroll in alternative school settings, charter schools, magnet schools, home schools, only to name a few. Parents of Belvoir have not in the past, nor are they now asking the county to transport their children to Bethel. We ask that you, the board, suspend any decision on this policy pending a review of the policy and allow Belvoir's parents to continue to enroll their children in Bethel School until a decision is made by this board to either eliminate or continue that policy. As a side note, I'd like to thank each member of this board for your service.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank
Next individual to recognize to speak this evening is Mrs. Jane Fox.
Good evening, and board members, thank you for taking the time to listen to me tonight. I know sometimes your decisions are hard, and that always that someone might like what you do or what you say or the decision that you've made, but we know that you represent our schools and our counties, and we thank you very much. My grandson, Sean Hoagland, has registered to go to Bethel for the next school year and was denied. There were many reasons why his mother and I chose Bethel. One of them was the small classroom setting, which Sean, we felt, would do better in. Also, we knew that he would get more individual attention with that small classroom setting. We feel that choosing the right elementary school is more important than choosing the right college that your child goes to, because they get their basics when they first start to school. The basics in elementary school will roll over to middle school. If they get good basics in elementary, they will succeed in middle, and then they will succeed in high school, and therefore be prepared for college. We feel that Bethel Elementary is the school that our child would best succeed in, and that's one of the reasons that we chose Bethel. Again, we chose Bethel because not only is it an elementary school, it is also a middle school, and Sean wouldn't have to make the transition from elementary school, get settled there, and have to be transported again to a middle school, and from a middle school, get settled there, and have to be transported again to a high school. We are not asking for transportation for Sean to get to Bethel. That is prepared. On February the 3rd of this year, my husband, Pastor John Hill, Joshua Christ Jesus called him to heaven unexpectedly. A week later, Sean's father was taken out of the home for a number of years, and my daughter has come to stay with me long term. During the passing of my husband, 70% of our household income was taken out of the house, and I was put back in the workforce within 3 weeks' time. With Sean going to Bethel,
Ms. Fox, you have just a moment left. If you
yes,
could
sir.
conclude
With
your
Sean going to
comments.
Bethel, I have free child care if he gets sick. If he is at another school, I will have to take off work. The income in my house is detrimental to we financially making it our house. We do not want assistance. We want to be given to the community, not taken back. So Bethel Elementary will not only help him educationally, it will also help our family unit financially. Again, I thank you. My reasons are educational, personal, financial, and the well-being of my grandson, who has lost so much and had so many changes in the past month or two. And I thank you for your consideration and your time.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. The last individuals to speak this evening is Ms. Caroline Doherty and Mr. Merwin Mehta, and I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you said it right, sir. Thank you, Mr. Merwan Mehta. I'm Merwan Mehta, and Mrs. Caroline Doherty. We are from Pitt County PAGE. That's the Partnership for Advancement of Gifted Education in Pitt County. And we are here just to support Mr. DeCrease's plan for the AIG students in the county. We have had the opportunity to look at the plan. Mr. DeCreasy, he presented the plan twice to us, once just to the board and once to the entire parent body. when he presented it to the board, we had several suggestions that he took in and again readdressed the issues and then came back and kind of has presented the plan. And we are very supportive of his plan. So pretty much we are here to support his plan. And Mr. Doherty might have some
Right.
other comments.
Thank you, yes. My daughter, like his oldest daughter, has been the beneficiary of AG since third grade, end of third grade, and it's been a great experience. Our girls are going off to high school next year, so it's very exciting, but I feel like they're very well prepared. I wanted to take a moment to point out how closely Paige works with the AIG department here. They appoint a liaison to our board, as well as us appointing a liaison to represent Paige on their strategic planning that they do every 3 years. You guys have that as an agenda item later today. I hope y'all looked at the 110-page document. It's rather dense, but it's very comprehensive. We are very fortunate to have such a good relationship with the leadership here. Mr. DeCreasy picks a wonderful team of teachers that rotates every 3 years to review everything. Look at the data, review the plan, look at the standards, where are we falling behind, where are we doing well, what do we need to speed up and catch up on, and we are so happy to be a part of that. And it's the appropriate, I happen to be the state page coordinator for the North Carolina Association of Gifted and Talented, and my volunteer job is to assist other communities of parents to establish page organizations. And so I've been able to educate myself a little bit about the AG programs in maybe a half a dozen other communities. And we're very fortunate to here to have the kind of relationship we do, and really the kind of brain trust we have working on AG issues. It's a complex program with all different sets of requirements, and we have all different sizes of schools, and it is difficult to meet those needs of all those children. It's really important that all of you recognize, like the parents do, that we have an excellent, excellent gifted program here. And we strongly support its ongoing maintenance at least at its current level. We'd love to see it expand, but I'm not sure that finances allow that right now. They do provide excellent services to our students across the county. They keep our students engaged, they keep them challenged, they make learning exciting from the very first day that they're in AG. And I honestly believe that our strong AG program not only works to keep families in public schools, I know of many, including mine, that program really keeps us here, but it also helps our university, our hospital, our businesses recruit top talent to Pitt County, because we do have a strong AG program all throughout the county. So no matter where they live, those professionals will be assured that if their children qualify, that they will have just top-notch, challenging education that meets their specific learning needs. So just want to thank you for your support and what you've done to support AG all along.
Well, thank you very much for the time, and thank you for your devotion and time to Pitt County education. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad you came to speak this evening. At this time, we have the spotlight on teaching and learning from the Grifton Leadership Program, Principal Will Sanderson. And let me say this, I have not seen a group of students this well-behaved in such a very long time.
Wow.
Amen.
These little guys will be commended. So let's hear from Mr. Sanderson, his wonderful staff, and his students.
I'm not Will Sanderson, but I'm the one that's going to speak. He's out in the hall somewhere. My name is Annelle George McLaughlin, and I'm assistant principal at Grifton School. And I had the great privilege a few years ago in another county as assistant principal to be in a school that implemented the Covey Leadership Program as part of that school. And we felt, Mr. Sanderson and I felt, that this is something that our students and our parents could benefit at Grifton School. The 7 habits were first adopted for adults, then they were adopted and translated for teenagers in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. And then finally, A.B. Combs and Raleigh had the brilliant idea that children could do them too, and translated them into the 7 Habits of Happy Kids. You have already witnessed that leadership in just the way that our students presented themselves as they came in the room. Those 7 habits are life skills. They are skills that will help these students to excel academically. They are habits that will help these students to excel personally in relationships with one another and in the world and eventually with their spouses even. They are skills that are intrinsic, and they will make our students into leaders, both not just tomorrow, but today as well. At Grifton School, every day we celebrate leadership, and each morning, right after the Pledge of Allegiance, one of the things you hear from our students are the 7 habits. So I'm going to ask them if they can help me with that right now so you can know what those 7 habits are. Students, habit number 1.
Be proactive.
Be proactive. It means you make good choices. You are in charge of yourself and you are responsible for your decisions. Habit number 2.
Begin with the end in mind.
Begin with the end in mind, and that's what we're doing at Grifton School this week. Now that the EOGs are upon us, we are saying this is what you've been working for, students, when you began with the end in mind. Habit number 3.
Put first things first.
Very good. That means when you go home, what do you do first? You do your homework first, and then you play. That's putting first things first. Habit number 4.
Think win-win.
Think win-win. That's how you relate to others. The first 3 are about yourself. The next 3 are about how you relate to others and the world. Habit number 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit number 6. Synergize. That means we all work together. We do better when we work together. And then finally, guys, what's habit number 7?
Sharpen the saw.
Sharpen the saw. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you're feeding your body, your soul, your mind with all of those good things. Well, they've said it all already, but that's what we're about at Grifton School. We're teaching leadership. We've seen our discipline decline dramatically this year. On May 3rd, we had our first leadership day where our students led the day, and Dr. Emery was able to come and be a part of that day, and she invited us to come. So we're going to invite our kindergartners at this time to sing for you their song about the 7 habits.
Bring the room, bring on up.
Should they face the other way? Should they face the camera the other way?
They want to sing for you.
So serious.
These habits are for everyone, adults to kindergartners. Preschool, we have preschool. Our preschoolers know them too. Face forward, here we go.
Be proactive. You're in charge. Begin with the end in mind. Success will be yours. Put first things first. Work and play. You should think win-win every single day. Be proactive.
now.
We want to thank you very much for inviting us to come, and we want to recognize our teachers that work with them and that came to be here with us this evening. Our 3 kindergarten teachers, Miss Zuki waved for us, Miss Steed, Miss Bailey, and 2 of our teacher assistants, Miss Donald and Miss Wiggins. And they've worked very hard to do it. Thank you for having us.
Thank
You guys
you.
are precious.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
job.
so much.
Loved it.
Thank you. And I love that purple dress.
Girl. You all look gorgeous and handsome. Look how cute. There we go. This one in the middle, this one in the middle. She's gonna be oh, she was on. Good job.
Oh, that's so
They know how to go out order.
Thank you so much.
Adorable.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but that was,
That's
always
what it's
a great
all
way
about
to
right
That was
there.
great.
have that in a board meeting. I think, always hearing from little ones is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
I noticed tonight we have with us also Miss Edith Warren, a member of the NC House, served Pitt County so well during the course of her tenure. Certainly wonderful to have her. Miss Warren, do you reckon you maybe could drive a bus and take those students up to Raleigh and have them sing for the legislature? I think they talked about leadership, did they? Thank you. Under item number 5, under consent items, can I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Ms. Council, if we could vote on that, please. Very good. Under new business, item number F, recognizing the movement in the agenda, board discussion regarding open enrollment. This was an issue that was brought to my attention from quite a few parents that were concerned, members of the community in the Bethel area. Mayor of Bethel obviously had brought it to my attention. Mr. Peden, did you want to discuss that a bit also? I know you had some
Yes,
issues with that as well.
I'd like to suspend the policy for 1 year at Northwest, where we could give these parents opportunity to enroll at Bethel, as we've done in the past.
It's, Mr. Peden, you have made a motion. Could you clarify that motion, please?
Yes, I would like to suspend a policy that applies that we, in an open enrolled school, that you cannot, let's see, the word, transfer to another open enrolled school.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Peden. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been a second by Mr. Forrest. Is there any discussion? Ms. Little?
Totally don't know the issue here, so I'm just, if somebody could clear this up and give me some more information so I can vote with some knowledge of this. I don't understand what the issue is.
When we, by our policy, by April 1st, we recommend to you so that during that April 1st to July
Right,
1st
the
window of
open
open enrollment. The way we look at open enrollment schools is we look at capacity versus enrollment. And when a school gets to a certain number, we usually look at 200. So
Right.
if a school is 200 students less in enrollment versus their capacity, that triggers a look at whether we recommend them for the open enrollment list. Let's see, at your March 18th meeting, we brought those schools to you. And the dilemma here is that Northwest was added to that list. It has lost substantial enrollment in the last 4 years.
Okay,
And so we added Northwest because it hit that trigger point.
okay.
We have had a number of students open enroll from Northwest to Bethel. And so when folks have gone from Bethel now to try to open enroll, if they're in the Northwest attendance area, and I think we need to clarify, people are saying Belvoir. Belvoir kids can go either place, and that was part of the design here. We're over capacity at Belvoir.
Okay.
And in fact, if you look at the minutes of that March 18th meeting, one of the things I mentioned was open enrollment between these two schools is a way to avoid reassignment, which would be a way to help the enrollment of both Bethel and Northwest if you chose to do that in the future. But open enrollment is meant to give people that choice. Northwest was added. Belvoir School is still, those kids can go either place. There's nothing limiting Belvoir kids. What limits Northwest kids from going to Bethel or vice versa is a longstanding part of this policy that says if you are in an open enrollment school, you can't open enroll to another school.
And we are
And
asking
I
for
do
him
want to
suspend
say,
that.
I don't know where the misperception is that we haven't enforced that policy, because we absolutely have enforced the policy. The exception to that would be if a parent made a transfer request, which they have a right to do, and came before the hearing panel, and for whatever reasons, the hearing panel granted their transfer. So, that's just the clarification I want to put here. We did unanimously support adding Northwest to
Open enrollment.
And there's no design here in any way to negatively impact Bethel. I don't want anyone in that community to think, that the intent, when we get enrollment starts to decrease in a school, we try to give opportunities for people to choose to go there.
Follow-up question. So just for clarification purposes, so the reason for this is that we feel like a lot of students will leave Belvoir and choose Bethel over Northwest, or we just don't know because we've never had Northwest as open enrollment? Or is there an issue to think that there's going to be a major influx into Bethel?
The concern that we've heard from, at least, I've only heard from two people. And
Okay.
that concern are people who live in the Northwest, not in Belvoir, who live in the Northwest attendance area, who want to open enroll to
At
Bethel. And because in the past, they've been able to do that because Northwest was not an open enrollment school. This year, they're being denied because Northwest is an open enrollment school, and our policy says you can't go from one open enrollment school to another.
And do we have concern with any of this, that a lot of the students from Northwest will go to Bethel that can? Is that the concern?
They can't now, as the
But I-
ones who've
but I'm
already,
saying-
the ones who have already gone to Bethel as open enrollment students can stay there. It's just new students who might choose to go from Northwest to Bethel, who haven't gone in the past.
But the motion is to suspend the rule that Northwest students could not go to. They could go, is what you're asking to
I
do,
think the
right?
rule is to suspend the whole language that says you can't go from one open enrollment
Enroll to
school to
the
another.
other. Okay. Thank
Just
you.
for Northwest. Just to suspend it for Northwest.
But there are only open enrollment schools.
No,
I mean, for
others.
elementary, for,
Yeah, there's some more.
okay, right, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on that.
Mr. Pete?
Yes, the concern is that if we got Northwest open enrollment, we're not gonna have any students that's gonna transfer there because Belvoir is one of the most private schools that is in the community, and they're the closest school that Dr. Emery is saying that is overpopulated. And I feel like that if we're gonna move some students from Belvoir to Northwest, we need to move some lines to put some students there. Because most of the parents or kids that go to Belvoir are Mexicans, and they're already low class. They don't have the money to furnish their own transportation to Northwest. I mean, when we thought about this open enrollment to Northwest, you paralyze this school because there ain't nobody going. You're not offering anything to attract people to go to Northwest.
Well, I think we need to be really careful. Northwest just got a $1.4 million school improvement grant, and they've improved their scores last year higher than any school in the district. And I think that was the other reason when they hit the number threshold, we felt like, not to take away from Bethel necessarily, but as Northwest grows and improves, and they're able to offer some programming there due to the SIG grant that other schools don't have, you might have people from other schools that would want to attend there. So that was also a factor in we didn't know when we put them on the open enrollment list they had the grant yet. That happened afterwards, so.
Mr.
So
Ford?
what you're saying is to continue with Bethel being an open enrollment school, is that correct?
That's correct.
And
let-
I agree that it should stay on the list as open enrollment. I think that community has struggled, and I think having those extra kids there and families there will help that community as well as that school. Because that school has been way down in numbers in the past, and it's finally gotten up to where it can offer some programs to maybe attract other students or people to that,
No one's
to that area.
suggesting taking Bethel off.
No,
the
that's
list.
that's not the motion, right? I mean, that's not even
The
the.
issue
depart-
is-
But
The
allow
issue is-
Northwest.
Allow them to go in.
Allow.
Either interchange them. If somebody's over at Bethel and wants to go to Northwest, they could do that.
Correct.
Am I following this correctly?
And
Okay.
Northwest too.
But we don't allow that in other areas of the county. Is that the point?
With
here
other
that-
open
With other-
enrollment.
With other open,
The
okay.
biggest issue there, if you do it, is if you suspend it for everybody, is high schools. And you have from the get-go, when you made the three small high schools open enrollment, that was a driving force, is that you don't want to have.
Flip-flopping back and forth.
I think one of the concerns I had is, I think one of the speakers had spoken about the fact that there is more and more choice for individuals to increasingly choose schools that they're attending, and I'm talking about outside of the public arena, whether it be charter, homeschooling, or private. I think if we have individual students that we would like to allow them to make the decision to stay with Pitt County Schools, I think that is a positive step in the right direction. Are there further comments or discussion?
I do.
Ms. Weed?
One, I'd like to apologize on behalf of Mr. Peden, what he said about Hispanics being of low class. I think that he meant to say there are some of our lower income
That's correct.
students in our district. And the need needs to be met, whereas the concern is, in the calls that I've received and the emails that I have received, were pertaining to the fact that they felt like Bethel School would close if those kids had an opportunity to go somewhere else. Mind you, a lot of parents don't realize that Bethel is a K-8 school. Northwest is not K-8. And most of the parents that I spoke to, after learning that fact, are very pleased with Bethel. And there is a concern with the economic development that's there in Bethel.
Right.
That the flight from residents to other areas and other states is a major concern. And the school has really been the glue that has kept that community together. That's been one of the major concerns. I've been assured, and I looked at the capacity numbers, and I see more growth. I would advise those parents who were turned down initially but did not ask for a hearing or a transfer hearing, to put in for a transfer hearing to see if that wouldn't change their situation. So with that being said, just, follow the system, as it is, and see what the outcome is. And if I'm sure us as a board, from community to community, district to district, you have more impoverished and more community-oriented interaction with certain board members than we do in some districts. And this has been one of our main concerns. So I will ask the parents to look at what the schools have to offer and look at what your options are for your children. And with that being said, I'll end that.
Mr. Kenny?
I'm wondering, thank you for your clarification, Ms. Williams. That helped me a lot. My question, if I may.
Yes.
Is bottom line, what I hear what Mr. Peden's motion is. What would clarify this motion to help?
I personally feel like if we have to stick with what we have. We're gonna have kids that are gonna flip-flop through all the county.
Okay.
With, transferring for this school, they're gonna school shop is basically what they're gonna do, especially once they get to the high school level.
Right.
Our schools that are our low-capacity schools, which need students, it's gonna hurt them. It's really gonna hurt them. I would maintain that we maintain the policy that
As
we
is.
have.
Okay.
That we really have, and let the parents
Go through the transfer
go
process.
through the process just like any other parent. And if we find that we have a lot of flight in these districts, then we can come back and look at it. I wouldn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater, for any reason. I feel like Bethel School has been a positive influence
Absolutely.
in our community. I have not, and I serve, and I've chaired the transfer committee in the past. And every student that have, whether it's been a problem student or whether it has been financial hardships or whatever, every student that has transferred to Bethel, every feedback that I have received have been positive. So I think that there's a sense of apprehension of not knowing, what that school is going to be. And in the future, I just see it still being a K-8 school and a positive influence in the community. I would not change because I'm afraid that if we do, we'll have students and parents that are going to school shop from one open school to the next school.
My one worry.
And I don't think that that's, I really don't think that that's fair to our administrators in that school and to the students. And then plus, we have to also look at our low-capacity high schools, how much innovation is coming in there, new programs are coming in there, and it's attracting more students.
My one worry about that is that, and we, I think, have acknowledged that it's a high-poverty area of our county.
Yes.
A lot of data supports that our poverty-stricken parents do not always know or understand to take advantage of transfer processes, have access to come to the hearings, and I just worry that many of these parents that would like to have access to these hearing processes or transfer processes will, one, not know to take advantage of it, and two, will lack the ability to have transportation to get to those meetings. And that's why I worry that if we've got people that want to take advantage of it now, that we're kind of closing them out of that process and saying, apply to us for it, whereas I think that there are numbers of people that are in favor of this.
So you then, for clarification purposes from me, because I want to make an informed decision
Sure.
here. You would be a little bit more in favor of Mr. Pedon's motion for the actual risk of flight, and then two, parents making an informed decision.
I'd like to see what would happen in this case. I think it deserves a chance to see what would happen. I think from what I've heard, I think there's enough information there for me to say, let's give it a shot and see what happens. We're just suspending it in one case, one scenario. Obviously, if we see that it proves to be difficult and there are problems with it or anomalies that we could not foresee, then we can go back and revisit that issue later.
Could we-
But I think the issue does merit us giving it a chance.
Could we reread the motion, please, so I'm clear?
Mr. Peden, could you restate
Yes,
that for us, please?
Very, very important. Sean, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
And because you said something about school shopping, the motion is for one school and one school only, Northwest. It's not for all the high schools. It's just for one school, suspended on one school.
If I could, I do not mean to sound antagonistic in any way. It's my job to do
It's not
this.
right to another student.
We have a obligation to all of our schools,
Yep.
and I just can't sit here and not say, we're trying to build Northwest. We're trying to help Northwest too, and nobody's trying to tear down Bethel. It's a great school. It's a great community. A lot of good things have happened. Open enrollment has helped that community, and we don't want to do anything that's detrimental to Bethel. But at the same hand, as your superintendent for a few more days, I just can't sit here And it's like you're picking one child over the other, in my mind, and I have a hard time just sitting here being quiet about that. I'm not trying to be ugly or antagonistic. Whatever you decide to do, we work with. But I think Ms. Williams makes a good point, and that is the parents that have legitimate issues or concerns, as we've even heard from here tonight, have a board-approved policy and process for bringing those issues before the board, too. And just as there may not be parents who know about that process, those may be the same parents who don't know about open enrollment or have the means to take advantage of it. And so I just want to put that on the table. Our whole reason for adding Northwest was to try to help them in the same way we helped Bethel years ago, and that is to give people a choice.
I still got one more.
Mr. Forbes?
I will still go back and say that community, the school is what's really helped that community and hold that community together, and they have struggled out at Bethel. So I am in favor of that open enrollment from Northwest to Bethel. And I also agree with what you said, because I worked out there. There's a lot of impoverished families in that area that will not have any idea of the process that they need to go through to get permission to enroll in Bethel. So that's why I strongly believe that we need to keep open enrollment between Northwest to Bethel.
So you're more in favor of the motion?
I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman.
We could call the question. I think I think we understand where the sides are and the issues are with it. There's been a motion. Mr. Forrest, I believe you seconded it. All those in favor, vote with your devices, and oppose the same way. Motion is a tie.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Item B, Educational Programs and Services Update, number 1. I'm sorry. No, actually, the Finance Committee goes down to item F, as discussed in the report. Item B, Educational Programs and Services Update, number 1. Board approval requested for Title I application and Title III. Ms. Morris?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think, are we doing A right now?
No, we have reversed A and F.
Oh, so
We
it's
reversed.
while
That
I
was
got
the way that we
floor,
had moved.
Ms. Owens chaired that last committee meeting. Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to present the Title I budget for 2013, 2014. And it's in your packet. If you will look at what you have before you, this year we were cut just a little bit from the federal programs budget. One good thing that we can look at is that the sequestered funds will not be taken out this year because they took it off the top. So I don't have to worry about January sending the money back because they took that off the top. And what we have added this year to our Title I plan is an additional reading specialist because there is a need as we go out and we do the different care programs and looking at the different classroom programs that they have. We know that there is a gigantic need to continue with guided reading and Read 3D, so another reading specialist was added. Also, with the instructional coaches, 23 schools are Title I now, so we have 100% instructional coaches in all of those buildings. So those are the two things that we added this year when looking at the plan. Another part that I put in the plan for this year is the focus schools. This school year, we didn't really have a lot of funds to do anything for the focus schools, so I had to kind of invent a way to help them. So I used DPI resources to come in and do PD for those schools, but not only the focus schools, the priority schools, and also the 118 schools. And so a DPI representative came in and they supplied all the workshops, and we just did the follow-up. So that was one way to save money. Because we don't have to turn in sequestered funds, I decided to put a line item for just the focus schools and helping those focus schools make sure that we close those gaps that we have in our schools with our different subgroups. And the focus schools that we have is Creekside, Grifton, Pactolus, Sam Bundy, along with H.B. Suggs, Walcoats, and W.H. Robinson. They're our focus schools. And as mentioned earlier, Northwest is the priority school, and they were awarded the $1.4 million grant within the next 3 years. So, Mr. Till worked hard on the grant, and I'm looking forward to all the wonderful things that he will be putting in Northwest. We have one reward school, and with the reward school, that is Amherst, and that means that they're pretty much on target and with the state average. So we do have one reward school in our district. Okay. We will continue to provide support for kindergarten. We have $750,000 for the pre-K program. Incentives, piloting, we're still working on incentives. We know that we're going to continue to work with Welcome Middle School, but also with Title II, we are incorporating ways that the administrators can use their money to meet the needs in the high-need schools, which we have a particular formula in which they will follow to try to make sure that we get all the highly qualified staff that we can find within, North Carolina. So we're also including incentives for teachers as well. With the district-wide professional development, we did add another reading specialist to help with the Read 3D, and we will continue to provide staff development with our district goals, with the SIOP, and also the writing with the Common Core right from the beginning, thinking maps, and as well as the 9 high-yield strategies. So we're going to continue to work with that as well. And with homeless, we will continue to give the same amount for non-Title I schools, which is $8,000. Are there any questions about that part? Yes. Ms. Candace.
Ms.
Sorry,
Kamnitz?
I was just going to move to approve the Title I plan.
Been moved by Ms. Kamnitz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Ms. Owens, I think, were you the second?
I was.
Very good. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, if you would vote, and against the same way, please.
Okay, thanks.
Very good.
And I just have one more part, which is Title III, and that deals with the LEP. And looking at the AMOs and looking at the gaps, there's a great need to incorporate a SIOP district coach. When we look at the LEP scores, they missed it by 0.1, and it's in writing. When we look at our ESL teachers, it's very hard to find ESL teachers. So although we are serving 958 kids, we only have 15 teachers, and some of them are part-time. So there is a need to try to find a Title III SIOP coach that can provide staff development for the ESL teachers as well as the regular classroom teachers to meet the need. So that is the thing we added for Title III.
Good.
That's it. Question? Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Morris, are you in recruitment of that?
Yes,
That
it
person
has
at
been,
this time?
yes, for the Title III SIOP coach, it is on the website.
Okay.
And for ESL teachers, it's been on the website all year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ms. Pippin, in the notes, in the minutes, when Ms. Kamnitz made her motion, did she make the motion to approve Title I and Title III?
No, just Title.
Just Title I.
I make the motion to approve. I make
And I'll
motion to
second.
approve.
It's been motioned by Mrs. Williams and seconded by Mr. Forbes. Let's vote.
Okay, thank you.
Mildred has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you list the focus school again
Okay, on your sheet,
Ms. Waters, if you would.
Creekside,
sorry.
Grifton,
32.
and it's on the next sheet.
Okay,
the packet.
next page, okay. Okay, I was on page 31, thank you.
It's in between, it's,
I see them,
okay?
thank you.
Very good. Thank you for a
Thank you.
great presentation, Ms. Morris. Appreciate that a whole lot. Next item under B is number 2, board approval requested for AIG 3-year plan. Mr. DeCreasy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You all are doing well. I'm excited to present the AG plan for you. So I think it starts on page 34 of your packet. I do have a PowerPoint that goes along with that. In starting this process, I've been working on it pretty much all year long. And so the first thing I wanted to do was find out, what areas needed to be addressed in the plan moving forward. So I went back and asked principals, AG teachers, the parents, what were their concerns. I did a survey, sent out all that information, collected that data. And so to kind of sum that up, some of the issues were our Tier 1 and Tier 2 kids, AIG students, not growing. Those were the ones that could just get the 93 on an achievement score, and then they were identified AIG. Principals had a concern about AIG now becoming a subgroup for all the schools. So that's just like your white males, all those subgroups that are in a school, your ESL population. AIG moving forward will now be a subgroup in the school. So they were concerned about that. With our last plan, DPI really wanted us to focus on a multiple criteria for how we identified our students. And then as far as pull out and scheduling, how much time we were giving those kids. And then as far as having some kind of cohesiveness across the district and make sure every school was doing the same thing, so every AIG student was able to have the same gifted services regardless of where they were at. And then the last thing was our nurturing component. So moving forward with that, what I wanted to do was I wanted to break out this presentation as far as how we were addressing those areas. So the new thing, which covers a lot of those concerns, is the multiple criteria indicator that I came up with on how we identify our students. Let me back up here. This is something that I developed, I came up with to try to give a point value to each percentile rank, whether on achievement, ability, and that's what you have in your packet. So what will happen is, and we've done this for 20 years, our third graders take a aptitude test in third grade. We get that percentage score back. Usually it's a 93 that gets them to qualify. So what I wanted to do this year was not make it a 93. If you had a 92, so sorry, Charlie, you don't get in. So, I wanted to create some more flexibility in moving forward so it wasn't so much of a hard score. So this year what we did was we changed from the TCS over to the COGAT. The COGAT is a really good indicator of a child's ability, and it breaks it out from the reasoning to their verbal to their mathematics skills. And then from that, we would use achievement testing. Usually we use end of grade. But this year, for those third graders, I just gave the Iowa Test of Basic Skills for reading and math to see how they would qualify. So what will happen on this matrix is we will take those scores from the COGAT, we put them in. So for instance, this child will get, they might have a 95 in their verbal, a 90 in their nonverbal. Their quantitative, which is measures their math, would be an 86, and a total composite of a 93. Usually we just look at that 93 and say a kid is in or out. So this year, we're going to put those in, and over to the right, you see it provides a point value. And then we did the same thing with achievement. So they're in a grade, they got a 90 and a 90, and then we're going to factor in their grades. Now what I did to kind of field test this matrix was I gave it to all the AG teachers, and we sat down one day and they took every child that they had and they plugged in those numbers. And then we said, does this child qualify that already qualifies? This child that doesn't qualify, where do they shake out? Do you feel good about that? And so we kind of went student by student, and they plugged in every score, and we looked at it to see how it fell out. So I'm not necessarily just pulling numbers out of the sky. We have kind of vetted the process and kind of looked at it to see how it went through. So when they put those numbers in, it'll eventually tell us if they qualify. But what I like about the COGAT is when you get these scores back, it will give you on their profile some information. So on this particular student, which I just made up the numbers, like it says a 9, the score will come back on the COGAT like a 9A, which tells me all of their scores are pretty close together. So what allows us to do is take a learning profile, look at it, and this is where the exciting part is because it gets into the data of each child. So I can put in a 9A because that's what the COGAT told me when I put that information in. And when I search, it'll tell me all that I want to know about this child and then how they can improve. So if they had a 73, maybe their score was a 7A. The parent could then put that in and it would tell them how they can improve their child so maybe they would qualify later on. So it gives them all this data that they can go back not just to the parent but to the teacher. As we're looking at our nurturing program, it gives them this data to go in and look to help that child. So when we put these scores in, it will then come down and it'll basically highlight if the child qualifies or doesn't qualify. So the way I have this set up is to qualify for our curriculum service, and curriculum is in elementary school, Stride in elementary school, it is our middle school curriculum. They have to have a score of 90 or higher. So that will populate, it's not a 90th percentile, it's a point value. So when they get that point value, it'll calculate their aptitude, their achievement, and their grades to get that 90. So this child qualifies for Stride. And then it also tells us, which is to me, a child that qualifies for curriculum is our AIG. They're academically, intellectually gifted. They have the achievement, they have the ability, and they can perform at a high level. But then it also will tell us kids that are AG, they're academically gifted. They do very well in reading and or math. So this child qualifies for both because a 60 will get you to qualify. And that, to get that 60, you have to have your aptitude plus your reading or your math, and then your grade in that subject area. So it's concentrated into that particular area of giftedness, reading or math. And then we have down here at the bottom a child that would fall under nurturing. Like that's right now, that's our tier 1 and 2 kids, and that's where the concern came in from principals saying we're identifying these kids into AIG, which is putting them into a subgroup. Now this doesn't deny them service, it just says we're not going to identify them AG, but we do see a need to serve them and provide them something. So Mike, I guess the way I look at it is, are we more concerned about identifying a kid AIG or giving them the differentiated service that they need? So I'm more concerned about giving them the service. So we're still going to provide that service for those students. We're just not going to identify them AG because that protects us from the subgroup side of things. Because if our school is going to be graded on their AG population, we want to make sure the kids that we're saying are AG are really AG. While we're still serving some kids that maybe are not AG. But regardless of how that shakes out, any kid that falls into these bottom 2 tiers, either reading, math, or in nurturing, at the end of 5th grade, we will give them another aptitude test. Whereas before, the way that would work is a parent could come in or the teacher would say, you know what, I think Johnny might be gifted, I want to retest them. Well, that's great for Johnny. But Susie doesn't get that benefit because nobody advocates for her. Well, that takes that totally out because it doesn't matter. If you come in on this matrix, you will be retested. This matrix is advocating for you. And then I will follow up on a sheet that I put in, and every kid at the end of 5th grade that showed up on this matrix somewhere highlighted will get retested. Now, the kids we won't retest are the ones that are in curriculum because that's the highest level you can get. There's not really a reason to retest them. But those kids that qualify just for reading or math, and then in this nurturing pool, will be retested. And it's a pretty liberal pool to fall into that and then not have anything. So that could happen in 3rd grade and never show up again in 4th or 5th. But since you were there in 3rd, you will be retested. So it gives us a chance to work with you for a couple of years, retest you to see if you would then qualify for curriculum service in middle school. So I feel really good about this matrix. I can see down the road where I might want to come in and say, you know what, this 90 is too high or it's too low. I think we need to adjust it. We're not seeing all the kids because right now I'm just kind of making it from scratch and we're going to go. So I got 3 years to kind of vet it out. But if I see a problem next year, I might want to come back to you all and say, you know, I need to tweak this, you know, and that would be tweaking to allow more kids in, not to keep more kids out. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kenny had his hand first, and then Mrs. Council, and then Mr. Moore, if I don't, did you, okay. Mr. Kenny?
Mr. DeCreasy, first of all, excellent job. This is
Thank you.
very comprehensive. I like the way it offers more differentiated services to more students. It opens the door a lot wider, if you will, and I appreciate and respect all your efforts with regard to this. I know you put a lot of time with this, and with that, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve this 3-year AIG plan.
Mr. Kenny's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Forbes. Further discussion, Ms. Council?
Okay, my question is, compare for me how this differs from the way it was about 15 years ago. My concern back then was a lot of our children could actually qualify for AG if given the opportunity. And all parent at that time did not know it even existed or how to assess it. And then there were parents like me that found out about it sort of almost at the last minute, paid money to get my child tested, because at that time you were tested in, you could be tested by the school psychologist, I think it was, but we missed that deadline, so we had an option of going out of town, getting a test, and then that wasn't good enough. So clarify for me, has it truly opened up? Because my thing was, because there's a lot of talented kids, and the little AG program was great, and I had a child in it, but one didn't get it because he missed like 1 point or so. And so my husband just said, you ain't testing my child no more, he's gonna be fine, and sure enough, he was fine, graduated with honors from this school system. But are we really reaching the masses of kids that could really be in it if someone say, because at that time I was saying, I still feel today, we really need to, and I don't know how you do it, maybe you can help me, give all children the opportunity, because so many kids have talent that are hidden and they're just left out there, and a lot of this creativity is high, so I mean, they just did all kinds of creative stuff, and a lot of kids that we
Ms.
call.
Council, if I could say, I think Mr. DeCreasy's presentation tonight, and maybe I missed the mark, but I think what his presentation did tonight was outline how it's become more inclusive in terms of opening the door for more students.
Percentage-wise, though, that's my question. How much percentage points has it included more kids? How many kids do we have in the system right now? About 27,000 children. How many kids
We
are
are
AG in that 3rd through 5th
We
grade
are
level?
sitting at about, as a district, about 10 to 12%. I don't know the exact percentage off the top of
Okay.
my head. So the state only funds at 4%.
So they only, so we're dependent upon the state, so there's nothing that we can do to give more children.
Well, our district does go above what the state
Yeah.
funds by
The district pays
a
for
lot
that.
of money. So
Okay.
We're way over.
We're way over?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we over enough? Now, tell me how diverse this program is. How many African-American kids, boys, girls, Latinos?
each
I'm trying to figure out, are we really getting all kids in that could really benefit from this program? Because that was my concern back then, and I fought like a tiger, you know, for my
Let's-
own child. So I'm just trying to
Let's
figure
call
it
the
out.
question. You asked the question. Let's let Mr. DeCreasy answer that.
Okay, thank you.
over the last 3 years, when we did the plan 3 years ago, that was an issue. I mean, it's an issue every time we do the plan.
Okay.
So, with the plan we did last year, where we took an average of aptitude and achievement to be a 93. That opened the door a little bit more.
Okay.
And so, every year I would present that package of how we've increased. Like the first year we went where African American, I could be mixed up on these two numbers, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on the numbers. I might be mixed up on a group. Like African Americans grew 90%, Hispanics I think were 87, and those could be flip-flopped. And then the next year when it kind of leveled out, it was still, those two groups were outgrowing the white population. We were seeing more gains there. So I don't want to do anything to move us backwards.
Okay.
I'm trying to move us forward.
That's good.
Where this takes us away from not just an average, where 15 years ago it was a hard score, 93. You had to have that 93
I
and forget
remember.
about it.
I
So
remember.
now then it went to an average. And now it's to not just an average, but then it brings in the grades, which gives you even more
Okay.
where the window
Inclusive.
is open. So I'm trying to do as much as I can
Okay.
to bring our best students that are academically gifted into this program.
Mr. Forbes?
I did want to say that I could tell a big difference in this program than it was a few years ago. It's much, much more inclusive, and it gives the students an opportunity to get into this program. And I did want to bring out that the Hispanic population and the minority population really grew tremendously over the last few years. Like you said, outpacing the white population.
So so my last
Let
question
me
is.
go back to Ms. Williams. She would be the next question.
Okay, I still, I want to thank you for your hard work, Tim. And it has truly been more inclusive. We've seen the minority parents, we've seen the Hispanic parents come over the past 2 years and 3 years to different board meetings expressing, their, how glad they are about the program and its inclusiveness. My thing is, I'm still stuck in the head about the STEM. Claire, help me understand, if we've got these kinds of kids that are doing these kinds of things, why haven't you gone to the state and said, we want a STEM school?
Well, if one thing I think
I
probably,
didn't ask you.
well, Ms. Williams,
But,
the
come on
issue
now.
is,
The issue is, we've got all of these academically gifted kids, AIG and AG students, that are doing phenomenal things in our districts. And I want to see those mesh together with the possibility of a STEM school. And I think that that's one of the things that you, being our district person, could go to Raleigh or talk to various people on the education committee at the legislative level and with our state representatives here to see why we can't make that happen here. I mean, we're growing by leaps and bounds in our AG and our AIG program. I can't see why we don't have.
I will tell you, I'm all in favor of that. I
Or
just told
why isn't the question being asked? If not by you, by who? Tell us who,
It'd be us.
us as a board.
It'd be us.
Well, we can give them that directive.
the issue,
But I mean, I would like to see, tell me, give me some clarity as to, I guess, where we're going with our AIG program, our AG program, and how far are we away from STEM? Is that a fair question?
I feel it's probably unfair to me. I'm all in favor of it. So, I would like to see a math and science school here. Why do our kids have to go to Raleigh, to have that benefit? That could be right here. So, I'm more than happy to explore options like that.
I
but-
think with the new STEM center and a new director and assistant director now in place at ECU and some funding streams there, I think you're right on target. And I think it's a good time to work on collaborations,
Good.
some grant funding. Mark Phillips, John Chafee, I think they'd love to land something in their own backyard. And with Angelo Collins now on board over there, ECU spent like 2 years
Yes.
hiring a director of that facility, but now there's somebody on board. There's opportunities there.
Well, with you saying that, I would really like to see our district, I would really like to see what it is us as a board could do, you as the AG and AIG person, to make that connection to the university. It's right here in our backyard. I think it should be something that we could make happen. I would love to see that happen for our students, for our city. It would be a plus.
I think our community would love to see that.
Would
happen,
love to
so.
see it. So,
That's talked about a lot at PAGE meetings.
well, the Page parents, and let us talk about it and see what we can do.
Well, I think it needs to be a
Exactly.
separate topic for our next meeting, if we so
But we need to put
choose,
it on
but
the agenda.
then we can certainly do that, but there's a process, which is what I'm referring to in terms of the way that should be handled, but thank you for your indulgence on that,
Okay.
Mr. DeCreasy. It's been moved and seconded, therefore, if there's no further discussion, let's call the question. Very good. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
DeCreasy.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Next item is C, Policy Committee Update. Mr. Kinney.
Yes, and this is actually a procedure that comes to us tonight. There's actually no board action required with regard to procedures. I think that's important to note as we start off here. This is procedure 10.108. This is an adjustment to the procedure for student assignments. You will see changes on page 39 under Roman numeral 2, letter A, and I won't go ahead and read through all these because there was a few of them. I'll just rely on everybody's. I know everybody did the reading ahead of time, did a good job with that, and I'll leave it at that. It is numbers 1, 2, and 4 under letter A. On page 40, letter B, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the addition on page 43 of Form 10.108-X.
This is just for informational purposes?
Mr. Forbes would like to make a statement.
One thing that I said during the committee, I could not support this because it has no anonymous claims will be accepted or assessed. Case 7 and 8 through 12. And that was just for the record. I've said it each time.
There you go.
Any further comments,
Well,
Ms. Waters?
For clarification, I believe, now, I wishy-washied on this too. Because I think it needs to come back to the board. But as I understand, all the focus groups unanimously agreed not to entertain anonymous. Okay,
They did not want to have anonymous
That's-
submissions. Okay.
that's correct.
Is there any further discussion, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Being none, thank you, Mr. Kinney. Next
So,
item.
For my clarity, Mr. Chairman, for my clarity,
We had moved on, but I will allow Ms. Williams.
I'm sorry. So from now on, when a person makes a claim that a student ran out of district, we will have a form, we will have a name. It will cut out the anonymous calls.
Correct.
So this is what, this is our,
Yes, ma'am.
so we're voting on this tonight.
No,
We
it's a
just, this is
procedure.
just our first read.
It's a
No,
procedure.
no action is required.
Okay, all right, okay. So how do,
This is a procedure,
okay,
not a policy.
all right, okay. That's why I'm not on the policy committee. Okay. I'm good.
Item D, appointment of Pitt Community College trustees. There's been good discussion on that, and Some emails that I've received from board members have suggested that there are some concerns with this, so
Yes.
let's flesh that out. I know I heard from a good portion of this board in terms of constituents that had contacted them. I do know we had, in my opinion, an unusually low number of candidates that were in our packet that were expressing interest in this, and I was quite surprised by the low numbers. And having not been on the board but just a few years, I don't know if that's customary or not, but Mrs. Williams.
Yes, my concern, and I think one of the reasons why we have such a low number of people for consideration for the appointee is because there was some confusion about advertising. And when it was advertised, how long it was advertised, where it was advertised, and people just didn't see it. So I think some requests went out to our PIO to extend or either re-advertise it so that we could get a better pool of individuals. If we could get that done, I think that would be helpful, and we will have more people.
Maybe we could clarify a larger pool.
A larger pool.
Yeah, larger.
I'm sorry. A larger pool of individuals who, what did I say?
Yeah.
Oh.
Excuse me.
Just a moment. So does that conclude your comments, Mr.?
Yes, I would
Okay.
like to see it
Mr.
re-advertised.
Forrest, I think, was next, and then maybe by Ms. Owens.
Mr. Chair, I have also received at least one constituent who just did not get a good clarification when they notified or asked up here about the procedure. And we might have been a little bit unsure about the procedure too at the time that the person called, and by the time that we did get some information out there, bottom line is the deadline passed. And so because of that, and this too, I think you made a wise statement in saying that the applicants were low, and I've heard a couple of rumblings that they're always low, but I think that it would behoove us as a board, because of some possible confusion from our part, to extend the deadline for at least 30 days and put some more advertising out there.
Okay.
But
Does that conclude your comment?
That's my comment right now.
Okay, Ms. Owens, I think you were next, followed by Ms. Camden.
What was wrong with the advertising? I don't understand, Brock. It was put, what date was it put in?
This is the ad that ran, if you all want to take a look at it. It ran in the Daily Reflector, Farmville Enterprise, Times Leader. I think one of the issues is, typically from my research and what you guys have done with this, I don't know that there's ever been a time in the minutes, from what I could tell, where PCC recommended reappointments and we opened up the application process. So that's why it was a little bit unique in terms of what we were supposed to do, and I think that brought up some of the confusion amongst yourselves, so.
Yes. I'm sorry.
How long was the?
Excuse me, just a minute. Ms. Owens, were you done with your
I
comment?
asked, when did this begin? When was it put in the paper?
It was
It's in the
May 19th, down at the bottom.
sorry,
May
didn't
19th, and
read.
began May 22nd in the other two publications. And when I looked this up in the past, what was typically what happened was the Community Relations Committee
Thank you.
was responsible for interviewing the applicants. And from what I could tell, they had interviewed who was recommended by Pitt Community College when there was a vacancy. There was one other instance, and I've got the documentation back here, where a spot opened up and all I had was the minutes to go on, so they were a little bit vague, but it said that in fact, let me be sure of the wording on that for you.
This was supposed to be new.
Um,
Last meeting.
Said the full selection process was completed. At that point, there was no advertising done for the position.
Yep.
So I'm not sure exactly what that full selection process consists of. From what I could tell, what we did this time
Was new.
went even beyond what had been done in the past.
Just, conclude your comment, yes, ma'am.
And we did interview the candidates, and we've done it several times, and it really is up to this board that they serve at the pleasure of this board, because it's this board's appointees. And so we have the process by which we interviewed the candidates who, however they found out about it, I don't know how it was advertised, but it was advertised, and we did interview those candidates.
I could only find evidence of advertising in one instance.
Right.
That's it.
Ms. Kamnitz, Ms. Williams, Ms. Waters.
If this only ran once and on a fairly short deadline, then I would be supportive of opening it back up. I'm not sure if 30 days is as long as we need to do it, but at least for maybe 2 weeks or some period of time.
I would compromise with that.
And I would be supportive of that, but I do think that there needs to be a mechanism for the applicants to be interviewed. And since we don't have a community relations committee, perhaps an ad hoc group could do the interviewing. I don't know that the whole board needs to do it, but we could. We've got a lot of interviewing going on right now, so perhaps a smaller group could do it. But I have a hard time choosing someone just off of a resume. I would like to have at least some of us have a face-to-face conversation with the applicants.
Ms. Kamnitz, Ms. Williams?
I agree with you.
Okay, Ms. Waters?
All right, my question was, how long has Randy Collier served?
2 terms.
And the term is?
I think they're 4 years.
4
aren't they?
years.
Okay, so 8 years, and
It's
Don Mills?
Same.
One term.
One term. And have both of them asked to remain?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and did we ever select Charles Long, or was he?
Yes, he was. He filled an unexpired term, and then he was selected.
Okay.
Via the interview process.
Okay,
And
thank
we
you.
also have we have 4 members, and the other
Oh.
one is Peter Craigle.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we say this, did you make a motion?
No, but if Jill will make the motion of what her recommendation was, I'll second it.
All right, I would like to move that we reopen the application process for a period of 2 weeks, and that we find a mechanism for an interview process of all applicants, including the incumbents, before we make a decision.
And I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Could I suggest in the discussion piece of this that the mechanism be similar to how we fill the board seat, that those candidates come to a board meeting and that we hear from them?
Yes.
And that we allow a few minutes for them to tell us who they are, their background and information, and we select a candidate that way. I think that would be expeditious for this.
Yes.
And
Would that
we would
be-
have the opportunity to ask questions. All right.
Is that agreeable? Okay. And that would be the mechanism by which you mentioned, so that we're all understanding of what that mechanism
I
would
was
be.
happy to leave that to you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion, Mr. Kenny?
How much does the advertising cost
It was about $300 per ad.
per ad? So this right here was 900 about?
A little less. It's, the Reflector ad's about 300. The others were 240, something like that, I think.
Could I
Putting it
clarify
on the
my motion?
website? Are you posting it on the website?
It was on the website originally, yes, ma'am.
Can I clarify my motion?
Please, Ms. Campbell.
I would say that the 2-week period would be from whatever date an advertisement runs again, not 2 weeks from tonight, but 2 weeks after Brock can get it back
Okay.
advertised.
Would you like for me to, I just want clarification on what I need to do. Advertise through the same
Well,
outlets as
the
before?
motion hasn't passed yet, but there's still discussion here. It
Yeah.
sounds like, in clarity for her motion, it would be, Ms. Kamnitz, if you would re-clarify that, please, so that,
That the 2-week, that leaving the application process open for 2 weeks would mean 2 weeks after it appears in the news media. Not from tonight, but from when you get the ad posted again.
Okay.
And may I make a suggestion?
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Williams.
You might want to add a couple to this, the Daily Drum and the Invoice newspapers.
Okay, I'm not sure of the publication dates on those. I had to check to be sure when that would, how that fits into the 2-week time span, but I'll look into it.
We're talking one occurrence. Just one occurrence.
That's all we can afford.
Yeah,
that's all we can.
Mr. Chair, I would less like to encourage any way that we can advertise in a free capacity to do that too. We were just discussing, our little group down here, Mr. Chairman.
Are you talking out of order, Mr. Forrest? Is that what it is?
We were discussing the idea of maybe some of the school web, Facebook pages or websites and get it out that way.
I can certainly do that. I can check with the television stations as well
Yeah.
to check on their community bulletins that they run. Again, I'm not sure exactly how that process works.
Whatever's free, I would be in support of.
Well, let's ask the question in this discussion period here. Do we want to advertise so that it does not incur cost?
Yes.
I think you need to do it one more time in the Daily Reflector.
Yeah.
Maybe some of these other that are very, very inexpensive.
Just trying to save some
I can
money.
help you with the Cable 7 station. I can help you with the other stuff, so, yeah. Those are all free.
Okay, so any further discussion? All right, Ms. Camnitz, Ms. Council.
Could we get the information so we can pass it out to as we move about, because that hands-on is good as well, and the criteria and everything.
Okay. I think since there's been so much discussion, Ms. Camnitz, let's come back together. Ms. Camnitz, could you re-clarify your motion, please?
The motion was to reopen the application process for a period of 2 weeks, beginning when Brock is able to post another ad. Or
Okay.
thereabouts. I mean, I know it may not all be on the same day. Let's just say 2 weeks from when it's in the Daily Reflector. How about that? And then a mechanism for interviewing all the applicants.
Will be the board meeting, okay? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further issues? Let's vote on that now, please.
Is your confirm, Mary?
Yes, I did. You did.
Maybe try again. There it goes.
There you go. Very good. Thank you so much.
Hey, I just need clarification on one more thing.
Yes.
The reflector ad, I could run an ad as early as Wednesday.
Yes.
Is that what we want to do before we went with Sunday, because that's the paper where you get the most, viewers?
I think we should, in my opinion, move as quickly as possible with this, so we're abutting the 2-week period as closely to the window that we just closed.
Okay. And in the meantime, collect all the applications. I collect all the applications, deliver to you.
Along with the ones that we've already received.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Next item is E, summer schedule for the Board of Education and appointment of an interim superintendent. It's been past practice that the board does not meet during the month of July. Is that still the preference of this board?
We are meeting.
Well, other than our search process and so on and so forth.
Typically,
Let 'em
Mr. Chair, I
know
would
we're
say
doing
yes,
something wrong
but
last.
we may need to with everything we got.
Obviously, but that could be through a called
Keep
meeting.
it flexible.
Rather than
Yeah.
a schedule.
Keep it flexible.
Yes, but there is a week.
I moved that we not meet during the month of July.
What about
Except-
subcommittees?
Except if we need a call meeting.
Yes, we do.
Oh, wait, excuse me just a
Yes.
minute. We
Okay, hold
have
on just a minute. Mr. Forbes has made a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
Sir.
It's been seconded by Mr. Peden. Discussion. Ms. Waters?
Ms. Camnitz?
Yes.
Isn't it the second week, second full, the 7th through the 14th that you're going to be out of the country?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Wish we could.
We made a gentleman's agreement that we would work around that because we didn't want to have any discussion about the superintendent, knowing that was her vacation. I scheduled mine right on top of that. And so I would like to make an amendment to the motion.
With all due respect, Ms. Waters, I don't remember any kind of gentleman's agreement regarding someone's vacation schedule, but
Well, I've got stuff written all over my calendar because we were trying to stay away from that week.
I do know on the
I thought that
schedule
was the
that
motion.
Mrs.
What
Tippin
about
sent to us, the
agency
only thing
report?
that we had on there was the interview process of July 15th, 16th.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay.
And so we didn't have any called meetings during that time. So
Okay.
those would be the items that we maintain on our agenda. Yes. Ms.
Mr.
Williams?
Chairman, I beg to differ, or we need to be very specific on what we do because subcommittees meet all summer long. I worked all summer long last summer. So there was no break in July. Our administrative staff didn't get the break to July. So subcommittees, we need to be specific about that because we have them. Because parents are trying to take care of their kids' stuff all during the summer, which require hearings and various things. So, I mean, I worked all summer last summer.
I think the intent of this is in terms of regular Board of Education meetings.
Well, now.
The schedule that we
now-
currently have
now.
from Ms. Brenda that she sends out to us has on there the July 15th, the 16th,
Well, you don't work,
obviously the
you don't work.
other pieces, but there is not a scheduled Board of Education meeting.
Well, we still need some clarification as to whether or not, subcommittees and hearing panels, because we have to schedule them along with what our administrative staff are able to do, and they, they need their family time too, vacation times too. So,
And I would say to this, I think the chairs of those committees, speaking for EPS, I do not have a meeting during the month of July. The month of July. If they're chairs of those committees that would like to call meetings, I don't think we would preclude you from doing that, but in terms of a regular board meeting, there are none scheduled, and there are no subcommittee or committee meetings that are scheduled at this time, which would necessitate a called meeting of a committee, because there's not one scheduled.
get it?
Any further discussion on that? Mr. Forbes, you made the motion. Was the motion seconded? I'm sorry.
Second.
Mr. Peden second.
I'm sorry, Mr. Peden did second that, so let's vote on that. Thank you so much. The next issue is the appointment of an interim superintendent. Is there any discussion or comments?
I do.
Mr. Kenny?
Mr. Richard, I appreciate the time tonight. The thought of our school system going without an identified leader for any given period of time would be challenging for me to accept. And I think we have a great school system with a great many people in our school system, many of which have leadership capabilities. To me, though, there is one with the leadership capabilities of heading up the senior staff, even in the interim basis, and that person, Mr. Richard, is Michael Count, who I feel has always come before this board and just done a great job, and is one individual that the 12 of us seem to always give a thumbs up to, and his ideas and his presentations, maybe not unconditionally, but just a strong individual, and that is my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Ms. Williams?
I think Michael does a good job in everything, but I also look at our other leaders in our administrative staff. And I feel as though we don't need an interim superintendent. And my reason for saying that is because our senior administrative staff work very well together. Haven't had any complaints concerning our senior leadership. I feel like this would be a time for us as a board to be cohesive as a board, and for Mark to be the chair, and, well, Mark being the chair, and Worth Forbes being the vice chair, that if any problems arrive in any of the departments, then that would give the the administrators an opportunity to get the information to Mark and to Worth and to see whether or not we can resolve it as a board. I don't feel like it's fair. Michael know I love him because he got my iPad. But he still hasn't stopped sending me paper, but I got my iPad. But I do feel like it's rather, how do I say this? You know, y'all got them 15-cent words. I don't like it, put it that way. I don't like looking at my senior staff here and pointing out and designating one individual to do this. I feel like Mark is the chair, Worth is the vice chair. If any problems arise, they can bring it to them, and Mark and Worth can bring it to us. That's what their jobs are, I feel, in this situation.
In consideration of that, and I appreciate your comments, Ms. Williams, but under law, board members cannot serve in a role as you're suggesting. Mr. Sue, you can certainly clarify me on that, but I think my limited knowledge of school law would indicate that as well.
There are things that board members cannot do. And if you were going to appoint a committee, rather than having board members be on the administrative committee, I'd say it'd be committee of staff rather than a committee of the board.
One thing I would say in clarity to that, having been in
Clear
this-
that, hold on. Clear that up for me, Ken.
Well, you can, in an interim phase, you do not have to assign all of the duties of the superintendent
To one person. Okay.
I'm not giving you a suggestion or an opinion about which is better or worse for a district, but you can assign those duties to different people. My point was that you should not assign administrative duties to a member of the board.
Okay.
The one thing I would say, Ms. Canvas, before I recognize you is, and again, going on a little bit of educational experience here, almost 15 years worth, and having been in a district where superintendents tended to change, sometimes quick status, that can be a tumultuous time when a superintendent's leaving and an interim is coming in, or either a new person is seated, and it kind of can create some instability if there's not an individual that can be gone to, and then that individual perhaps can work with others in terms of senior staff, in terms of gleaning some experience, or basically bouncing ideas off of each other, which I would assume our current superintendent would do that in consultation with her senior staff. But I think it does help to have an individual that can be gone to, whether in a crisis or whether in a specific regular rudimentary type fashion. But again, that's just me giving my comment on that. Ms. Candace?
I concur with the chair that we do need to have an individual designated to be in charge while we are without a superintendent. I would like to suggest that we have a very talented leadership team in this county, and that any one of them would be able to serve in that role. I am uncomfortable with batting this around tonight, and I would like to suggest that the chair have a conversation with the leadership team to determine whether any of them are willing and able to serve, and make that determination with that group of people, and then come back to us and let us know.
The only issue with that is, I think we're getting down to the last few flickers of the candle, if you will, before Dr. Emery leaves, and I think it would be helpful tonight if we could name this person to give some time for collaboration with the superintendent and the person that we name. I would say there is well, there's been a move. Is there a second to that if there's further discussion?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Forbes. Is there any further discussion?
I had a question. School is out, so the interim person wouldn't have to wouldn't have to deal with students, I guess. Would that make a difference, even though you're planning for the upcoming year, but the team already know what their charge is? And with the finances being the way they are, do we need to also spend that kind of money? Or will we spend money on, or would this just be a gratis position they take? That's the other piece. and they just to build their wonderful resumes that I was interim superintendent for the months, 2 months or so. So what would that entail? That's my question.
The summer is the busiest time for the central office, and I say, I don't have a dog in this fight. I just want the district to be okay. The points you've made here are all important. There's a great talent here, but there really needs to be somebody. One person's got to sign stuff. At the end of the day, you've got a team. They're going to work as a team. They're going to continue to work as a team. But from it's 100 degrees, can the teams practice? Do we have a heat stroke issue out there? I mean, there will be issues all summer long. Things go on all summer long, and we can't predict what they are. If we could, we would be managing blindfolded. So I just encourage you, this team is going to work together. They're going to support each other no matter who it is, because that's what they do, and they're going to support you and communicate with you. But I just think there needs to be a person that you feel comfortable with that is sort of designated as that person.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Let's vote.
The motion is,
Mr.
To name
Kim.
Michael Cowan as the interim superintendent of Pitt County Schools beginning July 1.
Thank you. Let's see, Ms. Council. That's it? Ms. Council, did you vote?
I did.
Got to do it again.
it's being ordered tonight.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Cowan, congratulations on that. It was a unanimous vote, and we know that you will do an outstanding job in your position as interim, and look forward to good things out of that, and I'm sure it will be, absolutely sure it will be a collaborative effort, so congratulations on that.
I need to change mine, because mine didn't do right.
Not present.
I mean, yeah, well, I didn't vote yes.
Mrs.
Could you amend that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. That would take us into comments by, I'm sorry, I forgot my A. Finance, Human Resources Committee Report, which is now item F. That would be Mrs. Owens, as I understand it, Mr. Cowan, Mary Williams, and Delilah.
And so we'll just call those people to the floor.
Yes, please.
Barbara, you
Yes,
did the last meeting.
I just asked them if they would come forward. You didn't. I know, but I mean, I didn't realize I was going to do this, so they're the people who know. They didn't give me anything.
I apologize for my entertainment earlier. Now that the room's a little bit cooler, I think I'm gonna be okay. The Human Resources and Finance Committee met on May 28th. Mrs. Barbara Owens chaired, along with Mr. Benji Forrest, and we had lots of good discussion centered around teacher supplements. It went back and forth for probably about a good hour, but a lot of good conversation. So we are still in the planning phase, but we would like to bring you a proposal that we're going to be working on our June 25th meeting. So we are going to meet this month in June, 4 o'clock, joint committee, so we can try to finalize some things before we end for the summer. And what we talked about was trying to put a process back in place where we can reinstate the supplement for our teachers coming into Pitt County Schools. We had a lot of conversations about retention versus recruitment, and our end result was trying to develop a hybrid model, which is what we think we'll be working towards at this point in time, where we can have some elements of implementing the supplement back and also trying to look at retention and keeping our 3rd year to 5th year teachers in our district as well. So the proposals that we're going to talk about just briefly, because it's not finalized, and we're going to be bringing this back to the committee, as the committee charged Mr. Cowan and myself to go back and look at numbers. So we have not completely finalized that, but we did want to tell you about exciting things that we talked about. One thing that was proposed was a 2% base for all newly hired teachers coming to Pitt County Schools. That would be beginning teachers as well as teachers that come tenured from another district, to start with a 2% base, and also putting in a factor of a merit type of pay of 3% increase. And this was going to be based on the percentage of, the proficiency on all standards 1 through 5 on the evaluation instrument. So basically what that means is that they would start out with 2%, And in the following year, or whichever year they achieve proficiency on all 5 standards, they would increase with the 3% to equal to the 5. Basically, that means a second-year teacher could go from 2% the first year to 5% the next year. We are going to have some eligibility requirements in there, of course, not being on a plan and following all the eligibility statements that we put in there to make sure they're able to maintain that. So that is where we're starting at this point in time. It doesn't negate any of the things that we already talked about from last summer of some of our high-risk schools automatically for recruitment purposes being able to get 5% from the beginning of employment. So that is what we're looking at this point in time. We're hoping that that would get us back on track as far as trying to recruit and retain our teachers in Pitt County schools and get back in the race. And that's where we are at this point.
One of the things I've heard also, Ms. Jackson, about the supplement that's being paid on a monthly basis, I've heard from a lot of employees in the district that they like receiving that supplement in a lump sum. Now, obviously, I understand, it's easier to do it monthly. That way, if an employee severs from the district, then no harm, no foul. There's no money that, has to be recouped or deducted out of the final check. It's easier on finance. But I do know employees, it's already a small sum of money that they receive anyway, but they do recognize that money in larger chunks when they get it at Christmas time or when they get it around spring break. And I've heard a lot of employees that say they really miss the old way of doing that. I don't know if other board members have heard from people or not, but it was received much better that way. I wonder if there'd be a way that we could possibly revisit going back to that other system. Ms. Williams?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we did discuss that, and we had several teachers, beginning teachers, veteran teachers, and we had the NCAE rep there, and they wanted it on a monthly basis. They did not want it in one lump sum. So we did ask that question because that question was posed during that meeting, and I thought it was resolved at that meeting to receive it on a monthly basis.
Just bringing concerns.
Okay.
Well, Ms. Waters would be next, and Mr. Forrest.
Dr. Jackson.
Yes.
In the merit pay component, is attendance one of those criteria?
That was not one of the criteria that was brought up at that point in time, but we, like I said, we're working on the proposal, and the first thing was suggested was standards, and that was basically on the year 3, because in the state of North Carolina, at year 3, the beginning teacher has to be proficient on all 5 in order to receive a standard 2 professional license and to continue to work as a teacher. So that was kind of the basis, but there are things that the committee needs to discuss that is open at this point in time.
Okay, next would be Mr.
Forrest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing who I am. But I did pose the question from the standpoint of a teacher bonus all at one time versus providing it per month. And I do know that the teachers that were there, they could substantiate this, that they did say that from a teacher bonus perspective, they would rather have it monthly. Now, what I also posed, but this didn't get any traction, and I don't know whether it can even be done or not, or because it didn't get any traction, whether it would even be feasible to bring it up, but dare I?
No.
And that is that those teachers have an opportunity to choose whether they rather have it in a lump sum versus over a monthly basis. I don't know if that would create some kind of financial.
Mr. Cowan has a very definite frown on that, I think it's safe to say.
I will let
Be
him
a
answer that.
challenge, to say,
Okay.
to say the least.
Okay.
With the system that we have, it does require a lot of paperwork between our 2 departments. We are, of course, working towards automation, but that would be a lot of back and forth. And on a monthly, change, if somebody decides that, I decide I want to go to lump sum, then that's going to create another system. So the upkeep of that is going to be kind of difficult.
Very good. Were there any further questions or comments on that? Okay.
Okay, so those of you that are on the HR and Finance Committee, we look forward to seeing you on June 25th at 4 o'clock to continue this discussion. And now I turn it over to Mr. Cowan.
Thank you, Delilah.
Thank you.
The second item on the agenda was a discussion with concerns to an SRO grant proposal. that had been proposed to us through the Office of Community-Oriented Policy Services, properly known as COPS, for an SRO grant. Law enforcement agencies are able to apply for this grant to fund the likes of school resource officers. Pitt County Schools was contacted through the Sheriff's Office for a grant proposal, COPS grant proposal, that would fund 3 additional SROs in our schools over a 3-year period. This would, under this grant, Pitt County Schools would have to pay 25% of the overall cost during that 3-year time frame, and the grant would pick up approximately 75% of the total cost. That would last again for 3 years. At the end of the 3-year period, for 1 additional year, Pitt County Schools would have to pick up 100% of the cost of that grant for those 3 SROs. Collectively, over that 4-year period, this would end up costing Pitt County Schools over $321,000, which currently, at this point in time, remains unfunded. It's worth noting that SROs that we contract with through the County of Pitt and the Sheriff's Office, as well as with the City of Greenville, are funded with the use of state allotment dollars, dollars that we receive from the state to fund at-risk student services. There was much conversation amongst the committee members present with concerns to our current state budget situation. As you know, both the governor and the Senate have released budget proposals that would have a dramatic impact on funding for education. Most important to Pitt County Schools and all of the school systems, the one that seems to be getting some attention, is the impact on teacher assistants. And the fact that overall, if you look at both budget proposals, we would be looking at statewide a reduction in funding for teacher assistants of over $117 million, depending on which budget proposal you look at. That would eliminate funding for over 2,000 teacher assistant positions statewide. Would have a dramatic impact on Pitt County Schools' ability to provide instruction within the classrooms in the early education, elementary years, grades K through 3. Not only will that impact the services within the classroom, but we must also be mindful that many of the safety and security efforts that go on within our elementary schools are done by the likes of our teacher assistant staff. If it's work in the cafeteria to provide oversight, in the hallways, in the classrooms, helping students in and out of their cars in the morning and on and off the bus, our teacher assistants are there to provide safety and security measures for our students in the elementary grades. So we're looking at the uncertainty with the state budget proposal, the impact that it could potentially have on some of our most needed employees, our teacher assistants, and the efforts that they provide us within the elementary grade levels on safety and security, as well as the currently unbudgeted cost of the grant that's been proposed to us, over $321,000. After much discussion in the committee, the committee reluctantly decided that maybe now was not the time to be moving forward with this because of the uncertainty with concerns to state budget, the large number of employees that could be impacted on teacher assistants, as well as the cost. But all committee members were in favor of keeping strong lines of communication open with the Sheriff's Office to keep talking about efforts with concerns to safety and security. And the next time this rolls around, whether it be the COPS grant or an additional type of grant that we can look at to putting resources within our schools, we should take a long, hard look at that in light of the budget situation that we're in and the shared costs between all the different services and organizations. So that's where we are moving forward with concerns. I just wanted to give you an update on the outcome of that from the committee meeting.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there any further issues or questions for Mr. Cowan? Okay. Ms. Owens? You can ask the question.
I asked if we could just cut out the comments this evening since we have closed session.
That would be an amendment. That would be an amendment to the agenda. Can we agree that we would? Miss.
All the
Move that we
comments
do
or
away
just
with
for
the
the board
comment.
members?
Is that
Just member comments.
okay?
Just the comments.
Are you meaning to include by the superintendent and board members?
Yes, everyone.
Okay. It's been. Are you in agreement with making that motion?
Well, the super's ready.
This is our last
Okay, super.
superintendent.
Yeah, with excluding the super.
So she would make a comment.
She would make a comment. I will pinch her, but go ahead.
Okay. Ms. Williams, is that the motion that you're intending to make?
No, just forget it.
Are you?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Peden?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we would do away with the comments tonight.
Delete
Except
board-
for the superintendent.
Delete board member comments.
Yes.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moore.
Okay.
All those in favor, let's vote.
Thank you, Ms. Owens.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I will see how quickly I can do this very, very quick. Thank you to Grifton. You all can see why, once I saw that, I wanted you to see it. We appreciate the effort of parents in getting those kids here. I also wanted to say thank you to the Page folks and Mr. DeCreasy for a job well done and a great program that has been most inclusive the last 3 years. I would be remiss if I did not invite all of you. I think you got this, but I hope our community will attend our art June 4th through August 11th. Student artwork is on display by students. The opening reception is tomorrow from 5:30 to 7. You did not get, okay. Jane is always pretty good about that, but the opening reception is tomorrow for anybody who would like to attend at the Greenville Museum of Art. I do want to say how proud we all were, and I know board members around this table would echo that if they had comments, which they just wiped out. So on behalf of everybody, how proud we are of D.H. Conley and the amazing showing this past weekend of the bikes. Very awesome, and really proud of those young people and the coaches and families and community who supported them. And then finally, this weekend marks the culmination of the hard work of many people. And we just ask our graduates to be safe, don't do anything to compromise graduation. We look forward to seeing everybody on Friday and Saturday at those 6 graduations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can't leave.
Didn't you have to read all about it? Didn't you have to read all about it?
I move that we go into closed session to prevent
May
disclosure.
I have your attention, please?
Prevent disclosure of student information as confidential under 20 U.S.C. 1232G and GS 115C 402. Consult with our attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege on matters including Rhonda Everett versus juvenile female, the Pitt County Board of Education, and Cynthia Purvis versus the Pitt County Board of Education, NCGS 143318.11A, and to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, conditions of appointment of a public officer or employee, to consider personnel information made confidential by GS 115C 319, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against a public officer or employee, and approval of closed session minutes from May 20, 2013.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Could you repeat that, please?
Please.
Let's vote.
Couldn't resist.
Ha, ha.
Mr. Forrest had to step out.
Just vote for him.
Do we need to vote for him?
No.
Do.
Don't
raise our hands.
Yes, in
Show
the
of
absence
hands.
of our electronic equipment, let's show a vote. If those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, thank you. Go into closed session.